Hey everyone, so today we're doing Overlooked Movies Horror Edition. Now, since it is gonna be Halloween in like 10 days or so, 9 days or so, I thought it would be a great idea for, us to look at some overlooked horror movies. Horror movies that most people don't really appreciate for the most part. And I decided, since the last video did so well, I would do this again. Yes, a lot of this video existing boils down to the last one doing so well. So without further ado, let's just get into this video and talk about some underrated horror movies. Now, when it comes to the George A. Romero trilogy, normally Night of the Living Dead is considered a classic. It's considered a masterpiece and the starter to zombie horror. Dawn of the Dead is a movie that is really good and sort of modernizes zombies in a very interesting way. And Day of the Dead is the movie out of the three that I feel like just isn't really looked upon as, anything like those two. I feel like when it comes down to it, when it comes out of the three movies, Day of the Dead's always the one that people ignore and just straight up don't care about for whatever reason. I feel like it has to do with the fact that the first two were so insanely influential that they completely forgot about the third movie. But if I'm being honest, Day of the Dead is better than Dawn of the Dead in a lot of ways, in my opinion. I feel like the first main way is because it feels more confined. You feel more entrapped into this world, and you feel like there's no way of escaping, there's no way out, and you feel the anxiety that's looming everywhere. With Day of the Dead, it just feels, not as confined. It feels like they could easily escape at a lot more moments. But in Day of the Dead, it's so terrifying because they're trapped in this military base, surrounded by zombies, and you really can't think of any single way that they could get out. So because of that, it starts, the space that they're safe, like they're sort of like safe space where there is no zombies, starts to slowly decrease. Like it becomes to the point where there's such small areas where there aren't zombies surrounding them, and it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and it builds on that looming anxiety. I feel like horror movies that do that are, a lot more interesting and fascinating. The best horror movies are always the ones that always take place in a confined space where there is no way out and there is no way to escape, because it builds on the tension and everything that's terrifying in general. Also, I really like the characters. I feel like I like how they're not all just crazy, likable characters. Not all of them are really, fun to be around. A lot of them are terrible people. A lot of them are kind of scumbags. And seeing them sort of, go against each other and sort of turn on one another is very interesting in a lot of ways, in my opinion. Also, I feel like the zombies in this one, like Dawn of the Dead, are also very good, very terrifying, and are very scary. I really love the practical effects with the blood and gore. It all looks so great, and while it's not exactly real in a sense, I feel like the way they do the makeup, the way it all just works, is so good, and I feel like it shows how much effort was put into this. Overall, I think Day of the Dead is a really great movie, better than Dawn of the Dead, and I think it's close to, or at least on par with, Night of the Living Dead. I know I've talked about Sweeney Todd time and time again, but I gotta talk about it again for this video. I have only seen this movie once, and while it was a very long time ago, I still remember this movie quite well, and still really love this movie, and whenever I am going to, and get the chance to, I am going to rewatch it again. I absolutely love the way the city looks. It looks so great, so Burton-esque, and while it's a little grainy, I feel like beyond that, it looks very Burton-like, but also, dark and gritty, and I like that about the movie. Also, I love the practical effects in this movie. I love how bloody and gory it is, and I feel like it looks very well, in my opinion, and just overall is it's very entertaining to watch. Also, I like how it does not take any of the stuff seriously at all. Any of the times that Sweeney Todd slits people's throat and stuff like that. It's all goofy. It's all over the top. It's all wacky. And I feel like that adds to it. It makes it, feel like its own thing. It makes it feel like its own world. And I feel like that makes the movie overall just a more enjoyable film than them taking everything that happens in this movie, seriously. The music is great, and I really like the notes. I feel like the singing is really good. Also, the fact that they were able to take this idea of combining, the serial killer movie with, musical notes and like having it as like this horror musical sort of thing is so weird, so creative, and I absolutely love it. And the way Burton's able to combine those elements to make something so flamboyant and so interesting, I feel like is just so impressive and shows how great of a filmmaker he can actually be sometimes when he takes the right project and really, really gives it truly his all. Johnny Depp is great as Sweeney Todd, and I really couldn't imagine any other guy playing someone this crazy and this maniacal. I feel like when it comes down to it, this is an underrated movie that really should be considered as a classic, but for some reason people just don't see it as that and overlook this movie. I'm not the biggest Wes Craven fan, but I really, really liked this movie. I feel like what it boils down to is the looming anxiety, the fear with it all, and, the whole terror of this thing that's going to attack them, this thing that's, going to kill them, and them not knowing at all what it is. I like the whole PTSD thing they do with this and how they build that with, the character. And then the twist reveal that he wasn't even a soldier to begin with was interesting. I feel like that was all this whole sidetrack thing to kind of hide what the movie truly was trying to be about. And then the revealing, what the movie is truly being about. It really isn't exactly a commentary on war all that much, in my opinion, as I thought it was going to be from the beginning. But honestly, what it was trying to be a commentary on was a lot more interesting, in my opinion. Spoilers, by the way, for the movie. If you have not seen the movie, I'm gonna spoil it right here, right now. So skip if you've not watched the film. So anyways, basically, what ends up happening is it's revealed that he's dead and that he is trying to, go into heaven and still thinks that he is alive. And then he finally accepts the fact that he is dead and goes into heaven with his child. I didn't really fully see that scene. Like, I was kind of half asleep when I watched it, but seeing the rest of the movie and sort of seeing that whole part and element, it's definitely a really great theme overall. And this idea of trying to accept the fact that you are dead and trying to, not exactly trying to cope with the fact that you're dead, but like trying to cope with the fact of death and the idea that we're all gonna die someday, which is something that I wasn't really expecting from a guy that made a slasher movie about a burnt man killing people in their dreams that really didn't have any meaning to begin with. So I'm really glad that there was some sort of overall meaning to this movie as a whole, and I really like that. I really enjoyed that about the movie, and I just really enjoyed the movie as a whole, even if it was really late and I did kind of fall asleep a couple seconds here and there, but it's fine. Still watched most of the movie. Still a great movie. Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors is better than the original. Be mad. Stay mad. I'm not changing my opinion. I absolutely love this movie in a lot of ways. I feel like that boggles down to it takes the fantastic concept from the original that was so good, interesting, enticing, and just makes it better. The kills are more creative. Honestly, everything about the dream sequences and the way they're made are just more creative and tension-filled. They all seem more interesting, fascinating. I absolutely love the practical effects. They just go all out with the dream sequences, and in my opinion, it works so much better than it did in the first one. Also, Robert Englund does such a better job in this movie than he did in the original. And the first one, he was creepy, he was kind of scary, but in this one, he has great one-liners, he has a personality, and yet he's still terrifying at the exact same time. Also, I feel like this movie is just a lot more fun and flamboyant than the original. It plays with the whole idea of this guy killing people in their dreams, and I feel like it feels a little bit more tension-filled. I'm not crazy about the characters. Some of them are kind of fun to watch, and some of them are not, but I feel like it boggles down to the concept is great, the practical effects are great, and the dream sequences are so fun and enjoyable to watch. I feel like this is probably the best you could get with a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, in my opinion. It just goes all out with everything, and it takes the concept and expands it so much better than the original does, in my opinion. Sleepy Hollow is a perfect example of Burton at his absolute best, and because of that, I absolutely love the movie. The cinematography is really great. I like the background settings. I like the gothic Tim Burton look. I always like that in all of his movies, but sometimes it just feels kind of grainy and bland and not done very well. But in this movie, I think it's done very well, and I feel like it has life. It has, not exactly fulfillment, but it in a way is able to encapsulate this very gothic world that Burton always does, but every time he does it, it always feels unique to the certain tone and setting of the movies that he does. And in this one, it definitely does feel that way. Also, this movie is wacky, crazy, and enjoyable. It's very much like trying to emulate B-movies from like the 60s, like Hammer horror and stuff like that. And I feel like it does a very good job at trying to be that way and trying to emulate that sort of stuff. Johnny Depp is very fun and enjoyable in this movie, and it's just a fun, wacky, crazy time that I feel like people overlook a lot, and I feel like it should be discussed a lot more as one of the best Burton movies and also one of the most enjoyable horror movies ever made.